So let's jump into talking about Bozcaada. We're going to start from the east side and work our way west, just like we did on Altus. When it comes to the far east side, the far southeast side of Bozcaada, where do you want to check out this area right here? There's two of the houses. There's the patio back here, which is a very fast way just to see if there's any good loot gear out there. Pick it up. There's also one other double-story house down this way, but the big reason to come here, it's got the two smaller construction buildings and the one large construction building. So definitely an area, if you're going to come down this way, you could get quite a good amount of gear and then move on. Where else should we talk about on this far east side? Along the coastline right here, its loot is pretty scattered out, but there's some of these double-story houses, and there's also some of the stone buildings along the whole entire coast. Stone building here, stone building here. You can definitely put together a loot run just by going down this coastline on the far side. The next place that you're going to talk about on the east side of Bozcaada is Marquez. Marquez, it's got the bigger construction building. It's got some of the smaller ones right next to it. The hospital, you would think it would be a great building, but it's usually not. Don't even waste time checking the hospital out. The office building down here on the far side of Marquez, it's got the bigger office building. Weird thing is that this building obviously spawns more than the taller office building. Some reason, don't know why you'd think the taller office building would be better. Also, a barrack on the far side. There's one of the water containers that you could check out. And the other thing is, it's just got tons and tons of houses in the backside to pick up any other additional gear after you loot the bigger areas out in front of Marquez. Next thing that we're going to talk about on the east side, communication tower. Not that many people ever think about the communication tower because it's pretty far out. It's up on the hill. It's really far north. You can go here quite a bit of the time and get some pretty good loot for pretty much free. Not that many people come in to contest this area. You've got the office here. You've got the bigger military buildings, smaller ones scattered throughout. You've even got loot that will spawn up here on the walkway of the globe, so definitely check that out as well. Next up, what should we talk about? This factory area down here by the stone quarry. Let's work our way in now from the far east coast. This factory down here. Great factory. Like I mentioned about the factory buildings, pretty good loot's going to be spawning here. The other areas to mention is there's a small military base down on the south side of Bozcaada where you can find, this isn't some place that I would recommend going and expecting to get a lot of loot, but say you don't have all of your gear, you can make a run over here, loot this real quick, and you might find the extra additional stuff you need. That goes the same with this military over here. Not a ton of loot, but it's pretty good gear since it's military. Now let's move further in. This is one of the best areas to loot on Bozcaada, is this factory area. It's got 4 of the water containers. It's got a giant factory, and it's got some construction buildings as well. You can sometimes you'll get a full kit just from looting this area. Next place to probably mention would be this military up on the top side. This military just recently got updated. A little bit before Season 3 started. It added a bunch of other smaller military buildings to it, which makes this place actually pretty good. The one scary thing about looting this is there's only one entrance in. So if you enter in here and someone camps you on the outside waiting for you to come out, they can get all your gear relatively easy. If anything like that does happen, you could always go back to this back tower and jump out the back wall. You're going to get yourself hurt. You're going to have to med up, but it's sometimes better than having to go out the front. Obviously, pretty good though. Barracks along with military buildings. Another area to mention, not because it's all that great, it's got a few of the houses, but there's quite a bit of the houses all relatively close together. This area right here, you can get some decent gear, maybe put together a full kit. Normally you'll get contested here because this is where the spawn usually happens. People will end up floating here, but it's something worth mentioning. The town down on the bottom side has quite a bit of the construction buildings along with a few of the stone buildings. All these construction buildings, you could run through all of these alone and end up getting a full kit worth of gear. One other thing to mention, over on the far side of this area is another military base. This military base you could come to and end up getting some pretty good gear as well. Now let's work our way a little bit further up. There's a town in this area. It's just a bunch of buildings, not much to mention. Similar to this area over here. You can get some good loot there just because the buildings are all clustered together. Next thing to mention, though, there is a construction building over on the far side of Bozcaada. There's obviously the military air base, which has tons and tons of military gear. One of the best places to get to, as long as there's not tons and tons of guys trying to contest you for it. The military is obviously a good spot. There's also the solar power plant up here, which has a factory. You can end up hitting the factory and getting some pretty damn good gear. The one other place that I'm going to mention up here on the top side in the center is another construction building, larger construction building, along with two smaller ones. There's a little bit of a town nearby, a little bit of some buildings nearby. So if you come here, you hit all of these, come over to these buildings, and usually end up getting a full kit. So that's going to conclude it for Bozcaada. Let's jump on over to Stratis. Now let's talk about Stratis. When it comes to Stratis, a large portion of the looting is pretty much determined by the drop you get and where you're going to have to be parachuting. But the best areas that we're talking about when it comes to loot on Stratis is going to be the Stratis Airbase up on the northwest side. Obviously, tons and tons of military loot. The two offices, the bigger green building, the military building. There's actually a white office, taller office right here that you can loot. Smaller one over on this far side, and there's the two out here as well. Those are the main areas that you're going to be looking at for loot when it comes to Stratis Airbase. Also, up here in Battle Royale, there's going to be a green tower at this area, along with this other green building, bigger green military building, and the small container and that smaller tower. So the Stratis Airbase is going to be where you're going to get the best loot. It's also where you're going to probably have the hardest trouble getting out alive because a lot of people end up going here. A lot of people end up camping this hill and shooting at you as you're coming up out of the airbase to make the circle. It's pretty risky, but it's high risk, high reward area. The next thing that we're going to go jump to would be Aegea. Aegea on the far side, it's got some double-story stone buildings. And also on this side, it's got some double-story stone buildings. Also, many of the double-story houses throughout the whole entire area. The other thing to mention about the Aegea area is the firing range on the outside. Let's jump up now towards Rogaine. Rogaine's another area, another military area that you can come and hit. They've actually added in another double story similar to this. It's the medical one where you can get some pretty good gear. But Rogaine, another great area, another military loot area that you can hit. Camino also has some good loot. It has a taller office building, a military office here as well that they add in Battle Royale. But yeah, you got the 3 gearing containers, you've got the military office, and you've also got the few military buildings up here on the far side. The next area that we could talk about, there's a tower located here and here. We won't go to those because they won't actually end up being there. They're added in for Battle Royale. The old outpost, it's decent. It's got the double-story stone building and the single barrack. Most of the time, Old Outpost and Air Station Mike aren't going to be worth fighting over because a lot of people end up going to these. It's going to be really high risk for not much reward. There's not enough loot, but a lot of people like to deathmatch at Old Outpost and Air Station Mike. It's definitely worth noting, though, because you can get good loot. Obviously, Air Station Mike's got some military-grade gear here. Military office. There's actually a tower over on the far side. Pretty much everybody knows this. The other places to mention, Maxwell. Down here on the far side, quite a few military buildings. You can sometimes get a full kit out of these if you're lucky. You can go from Maxwell down to this area where the double-story stone building is, right here. Sometimes if there's a vehicle, what you can do is you go hit Maxwell, come to the stone building, get the vehicle, and then go down and hit these outskirt buildings to get the remainder of your gear. There's a small military camp here, and over on the far side, there's the small area with a double-story stone building. There's not that much loot when it comes to Stratis, like I was saying. A lot of it's just going to be determined by parachuting. Wherever you get, you're going to have to get gear, and that's what you're going to have to live with and deal with and try to kill people for their gear after that. The one other place to note is Girna and Tempest. Girna, it's got quite a few of the double-story stone buildings, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that makes for some good loot, and also there's the military tower that they add in Battle Royale as well. Last place to talk about, Camp Tempest. Camp Tempest, smaller military area, but you can come here and you can often get pretty good loot. Not usually a full kit, but enough gear that you could go maybe after that to Girna, or come back towards Air Station Mike and kill somebody and get their gear. Basically, when I was talking about Aegea, when I was talking about Stratis, Bozcaada, and Altis, this is really aimed at the newer players. Often I get the question, where can I go and get loot? Where are the best areas to loot? I just wanted to go over and touch on all the areas to show newer people to the game. These are the areas you can go to. These are the buildings that are there, and let them decide on where they want to actually end up going. That's going to conclude it on Stratis. Next Battle Royale guide, we're going to be talking about the blue circle, the strategies on entering the blue circle, and how you're going to end up playing out. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed the video and found the video helpful, make sure to leave a thumbs up. Subscribe for future content. Plenty more videos coming out on the channel. More Arma highlights, more game highlights, and the Battle Royale guide. Everyone, thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next video.